What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We have another amazing gear haul for you all today. Some military surplus, as well as some new gear that I figured I'd go ahead and share because I'm in a great mood because it's Friday. And I always get inspired to do videos on Friday because it's the weekend, getting ready to enjoy some intense shalom, some peace coming up. So I'm in a good mood, so let's go ahead and talk about what we picked up today. Now, first with the new. We're going to start with the new, and then we're going to share some of the awesome military surplus. So the new, very basic actually today. We've actually picked up a box of 380 95 grain just to continue testing my little Smith & Wesson uh, Bodyguard 2.0 in 380 caliber. So we picked that up today, $23 for a box of 50 95 grain. Not the greatest in today's landscape, but it is what it is. And then I've been in the market for a bipod for a while, and I've been experimenting around with a lot of like cheaper Amazon bipods, if you will. And I went ahead and sprung with for this flat dark earth, and I didn't want flat dark earth, but it's the only thing that they had. I drove to two stores today because I got paid today and I got my bonus and I needed some equipment. So I went ahead and went out and went on a shopping spree. Drove all the way into town, like a half hour, to a store that had all this variety. And they had everything that I didn't need. I needed a very particular 6 to 9 inch bipod in M-Lock. I was hoping for something with more, I guess, diversity and adaptation, but I do have a very specific application. Being this guy right here, my DD5, I have a upper that is a 6.5 Creedmoor, a V5 upper that I'm planning on doing kind of a little bit of a long range type of a thing with a bipod. So I was looking for a decent bipod, and flat dark earth goes well with black. Besides, I need to paint this thing anyway. So there's that, the new bipod. And then here, I haven't opened this yet, but I'm hoping this is what I think it is. So I've been kind of dwelling in the 4 power range for a couple years now. It seems to be kind of the sweet spot for, let's just say, 0 to 600. So what I've been experimenting with is my 20-inch rifles because, the 10.5 inches are fun, the 14.5 inches are fun, the 16 inches are fun, a good carbine. But nothing says real rifle like rifle length rifles, being a 20-inch here. So we've been experimenting with the Barska 4x20, which is not quite period correct repro as far as the carry handle optics. If you really want one of those, you have to go to Brownells and get one of the Colts repros, and those are coming in like $300 to $400. So we've been experimenting with the Barska for a couple of weeks now, maybe going on a month. And so somebody that was a subscriber hit me to this alternative. And I don't remember the name. Let's see here. Does it say? Just says 4x20 rifle scope. But here it is. We're going to go ahead and. Looks like it's well protected and bubble wrapped. And this is supposed to be, again, it's some, over from Asian company name, but this is supposed to be a little bit more true to the repro as far as the Brownings. It does have actual caps, protective caps, which is nice, and it has the characteristic screw on the side, which looks a little bit more true to the classic 4x20. But this, compared to this, you can see there's a little bit of a difference. Give me one moment here. Okay, sorry for the momentary hiatus due to running a homestead. Occasionally I hear things and I have to go deal with them, which is why we ended yesterday's stream abruptly, but I digress. Here is the actual new optic that I got that's for the carry handle. Now, we showed you my A2 clone, which is the one that we had the Barska on. I think what we're actually going to test this new actually lower cost optic on is we're going to put it on this classic Colt SP1. And this is kind of an interesting piece of classic gear. This isn't military surplus. This is a civilian model Colt AR-15. It says caliber 223, but these actually will shoot 5.56 and 223 both safely. You have to be careful with that in some rifles that are marked 223. But the original Colt SP1 Sporter, this is what they call a pre-ban. And it's pretty cool that it has the original triangular handguard and basically slick side. There's no shell deflector and there's no forward assist, but it does have a dust cover, which is pretty nice. So we're going to actually test this scope with this classic Sporter rifle. Apart from being pretty cool and the action being buttery smooth, the one thing that I don't prefer about this is that pencil barrel, being that my A2 clone has the Cold Hammer Forged FN barrel, which is considered to be a pretty decent barrel. You can see the size comparison there because apparently size matters. So those of you that have stuck around through all the new gear that I've shown you today, I'm going to show you now the military surplus section. Now, this comes in multiple layers, being that I have things that I got today, things that I got 2 weeks ago, and things that I got years ago. So the first thing that I'm going to show is something kind of interesting that I got today. This is an Alice military surplus pouch that is marked, actually, you see this here. It's kind of hard to make out from the NSN, but this is a 9mm Alice pouch, which is kind of interesting because we are running the LC1 harness. This is the newly configured H harness pattern. So with the butt pack, which we've talked about in previous videos, and we'll do an update video once I get it configured with this and my 9mm setup, because it's going to be a bit of a hybrid. It's a surplus, 1980s era setup with 9mm. I guess maybe this would have been meant for the M9, the Beretta. But apart from this, we will talk about a piece of military surplus that I picked up a couple of weeks ago from a consignment shop. And this is very special, being that this is a World War II era USMC bolo knife. You see that? These things are pretty hard to find in decent condition in this day and age, being that this has been both restored. You can see the handle there. Look at that chonkus of a knife, full tang. That is a thick piece of steel. And the research that I've done on this particular knife is varied. Some people say it is the U.S. Marine Corps, which is what most people think of for USMC. Some people say it is for U.S. Medical Corps. And the story is that these were issued to Navy corpsmen, medical corpsmen, and they were issued as a multi-purpose tool to perform not only bushcraft, to like make litters and things for carrying people, but also in some cases amputation. Now, the thing that I find particularly of interest in this blade is the fact that you can see the main edge along, and then with the tip and the back cut, which is very indicative of Filipino blades. Here I have a Ginanting, which is universally recognized as the main blade of Filipino martial arts. You might notice the main blade and the back cut, because in Filipino martial arts you do all kinds of abanico and sneaky cuts, because that's how Filipino martial arts works. It's a survival art. that is intending on the kill stroke. And what happened was, when the American military entered the Philippines in the late 19th century, they went in there with their high-powered rifles, their high-caliber rifles, and their wheel guns with their, high-pressure rounds, and then they kept on having their officers and men turn up with no heads because the Filipinos had been practicing for hundreds of years, being that they were invaded by the Spaniards and basically de-armed. So they had been practicing with blades, sticks, and whatever they could for hundreds of years, and the Filipinos understood the way of the sword in combat arms. So that is the influence on the USMC Bolo. Again, an incredible piece of military surplus in history. I have not yet completely dived into the rich history of this particular bolo, but I'm continuing to research it. You can see the leather sheath with the brass inlays here, and then this actually has the same hook style suspension that will go up against some of the later military surplus systems. So another addition to the overall awesome military surplus collection. And then there's one other thing I wanted to share that is something that is kind of interesting that I picked up quite a few years ago, actually. See this big circle here? Isn't that interesting? So this is something that I actually picked up from a military surplus store back in the Quad Cities, being the Quad Cities of Illinois and Iowa, Rock Island, Davenport, Moline, East Moline, or Milan, or it depends. There's a debate over what actually constitute the Quad Cities, but definitely Rock Island, Davenport, and Moline are three of them. And they have a very awesome military surplus store on the Mississippi River, which I picked up this. And I'm having trouble, and I'm basically crowdsourcing now because this is an actual military issue tent, a rapid deployment tent that I picked up that for me living in the South would solve a lot of issues. Now, watch this. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to move stuff out of the way here. So this is very interesting. So I'm going to turn the camera down. Let's see this. And if anybody has any history with this particular type of tent or system, I would be very interested to hear from them because this thing is cool. You take that out of the disc, rotate that around. You might knock over your guitar, but you basically have a complete insect-proof military sleep system. And I think I paid around $110 for this from a military surplus store in approximately 2018. But you can see that apart from the fact that it has a basic bug net, it also happens to have a complete cover. So I believe this would be considered a one-man tent. I guess it could be a two-person tent if you are very intimate with somebody. I don't tend to be intimate with other men, so that wouldn't be my case. But I guess if you have your spouse or your wife with you, this would be a pretty cool option if you don't happen to be in the military. But this thing, it's obviously desert colors and a pretty awesome little piece of military surplus. I could see deploying this in maybe the bed of my Jeep or truck, maybe with just a whoopee or something. You'd be good to go to spend the night outside. Keep yourself bereft of bugs and other insects. But anyway, that's just some cool new gear, both new and old, new and military surplus that I figured I'd share. And being that it's finally approaching fall down here in Florida and we're getting some cool nights, I might actually be apt to spend the night outside in something like this to test it out. But this is a cool piece of military surplus. I mean, everything about it, just looking at it compared to, I mean, look at these zippers. Things that are available in the modern landscape made in different places might reap different quality standards. But anyway, cool new gear, military surplus. I figured I'd share. And with that, shalom.